everyone, and welcome to a truly special episode. Today, we are honored to have with us Mr. Paul Young, the voice and the heart behind the shack. He journeys through brokenness and healing, also his face of love and praise have touched the world. Today, we will walk with him through his story and explore the people, truth behind the novel and movie adaptation. Welcome, Mr. Paul Young. It's a truly pleasing to have you with us today. How are
My,
you?
so good to see you. Welcome to my messy office and my messy world. And I'm so honored to be with you.
I'm so honored too. Really, I'm so happy that you are here with me. I need you to tell me about yours.
So I was born in Canada,
Yeah.
way up in the north. I was the firstborn of four eventually. My parents wanted to be missionaries. And so when I was 1 year old, we moved across the world to the highlands of West Papua now. It was Netherlands, New Guinea at the time. And it's a
Yeah.
big island right above Australia. And so that's where all my young years were. And my first language was not English. My first language was a tribal dialect. And my first dreaming language was the tribal dialect. It was called Dani. And then at 6 years old, I was sent to boarding school, which was far away. 6 years
Yeah.
old, not right. I remember looking at our firstborn son, and he was standing next to a fireplace,
Yeah.
and he had one leg up. I can see him clearly in my mind. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, he's 6 years old. How could I ever send him away to boarding school at 6 years old? But the mission required it. So, um,
Mm.
but before that, when I was about 5 years old, 5 to 6, there was sexual abuse in the tribal dialect, in the tribal culture, and 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 that was very difficult. And then when I went to boarding school, the sexual abuse continued in the boarding school, Christian boarding school.
Mm.
And so, that's when I went to boarding school, it was the first time I discovered that I was white. I had no conscious understanding that I was white. I always considered myself a tribal member because they raised me. And my parents were busy doing all the mission work. And so I was raised Donnie. I was raised as a member of the tribe. So when I went to boarding school, suddenly I lost my color. I lost my culture. I didn't understand this new culture that I was in, and on top of that, there is this sense of not belonging. It wasn't so much to my parents because I never connected there, but it was
Mm.
to the tribe, and so all losses. And then you add on sexual abuse, which to me is something that tears apart the very inner world of a human being, and so. I was a mess, but I'm actually smart. I didn't know that until I was in my 20s. And I'm actually creative. I didn't know that until I was in my 20s. I just thought I fooled people. My father was a very angry man, and he didn't have the capacity to be a father because his father had destroyed that in him before I ever showed up, my grandfather, who I never met. And so my father was a brutal disciplinarian, and I'm the firstborn, so I was the object of a lot of his fury. And so I didn't want anything to do with him. He terrified me. And so, in a sense, going to boarding school was sort of a relief, but it was also a very centerpiece of loss. And then at 10 years old, we came back to Canada um, suddenly and without any reason that I was told. I couldn't find out why, but we come back to Canada, and my father became an itinerant minister. That means he moved around to different churches, and so I went
Mm.
to 13 schools before I graduate high school. And
Mm.
so every hello was a goodbye just waiting to happen, and I didn't I didn't know how to build depth of relationship. And by the time that I was 12, I was already addicted to pornography. And that was a very devastating addiction. And that lasted into my marriage and into, um, well, I can tell you about that in a moment, but I hated it. I hated myself. In my relationship with my father, I had learned to be a good liar because it was the only way I could try to escape the beating. And and so lying became a survival skill. I was a real mess. On the outside, I was a perfectionist performer, and I performed well. But I was living from the outside in. So, hypervigilance, where you are aware of everything that is happening and you can pick up signals from people, and then you try to posture yourself so that you can hopefully meet some of their expectations and win maybe a little approval or a little affection. But closed off relationally, closed off emotionally, and just a performer. So I graduate high school. I take all of that I went to Bible school. In fact, the same one that my parents had gone to. I didn't know what else to do. And then I didn't, I actually didn't graduate from that school, which was a very good school, but it was the school of the denomination that my parents were missionaries of. And by the end of my third year, they determined I wasn't a good investment for the denomination. Even though I was a missionary kid, which is the top of the value chain, and but they determined, he's not a good investment, and they were right. I mean, in hindsight, they were right. So I got accepted to almost every school because I performed so well academically. And I had one in Los Angeles that I was going to, but I hit a crossroads in Oregon. And I ended up staying in Oregon instead of going down to Los Angeles. And that was so important because I still went to school, graduated with my undergraduate degree, but I started working for a little church, actually a very big church. Only time in my life I have ever worked for a church. But so, some things really started to happen there, and I met Kim. And we've now been married for 45, going on 46 years. And Kim, uh, Kim saved my life. I mean, there's no other way to look at it, but she saved my life. And she is not, a weak, um, soft-mannered, quiet woman. She is a very powerful. In fact, she has 5 sisters, and the 5 sisters and Kim are called the Force. And it's sort of like, may the force be with you.
Yeah.
And but I dragged all my secrets, all my addictions, everything into our marriage, and she didn't know. And we have 6 children. And when our last child was born, um, let's see, about 7 months after he was born, we have 4 boys and 2 girls. And Kim caught me in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends. And that stopped me. That it was either in desperation, find a way to see if there was change possible or to kill myself. Suicide had always been a distant friend because it would be the last way to, to run away. I think for many people who think about suicide, it's the last way to run away. So it's not allowing yourself to hit the bottom. And you actually don't have to hit the bottom. It's like an elevator that goes down into the soul, and you can get off the elevator anytime you want, but you have to begin to ask people for help. You have to begin to engage. And so when that happened, all I got was January 2nd, 1994. And Kim calls me on the telephone. I was at a restaurant with a friend of mine, And all she says was, "I'm waiting for you at your office, and I know." And I knew what she knew. And so I had to make a decision whether to drive across town to my office or to just kill myself. And to this day, I don't remember driving across town. But I walked in, she had already torn up the office, looking for evidence or whatever. And that started a 4 hour, it wasn't a conversation, where Kim just laid me out. Her fury was intense. And when I look back at our life and my life, part of what saved me was the intensity of her fury. I sometimes refer to her as the wrath of God. So, and it's to me, the wrath of God is not about punishment or vengeance or any of those things. To me, the fury of God is God's love that is opposed to everything in us that is not of love's kind. It's like we have one of our daughters who had a brain tumor, a little pituitary adenoma on the backside of her brain, and it affected her biologically, but it was in a place where if they did surgery, there was a high possibility that she could have brain damage. And but the other thing was that it began to affect her in terms of how she saw herself. She began to believe that she was not worthy of being loved. She began to believe that she was damaged goods. Um, and I'm her father. And I was furious, not at her. I was furious at that little brain tumor, but even more, I was furious at the lie that would cause her to think the things that she was starting to think. That's the wrath of God. And every parent knows if you're a parent and you have a child who has an addiction or has a sickness, you know this fury that would do anything to protect your child, to save your child. And where do we get that kind of other-centered, co-suffering love? It originates in God. It originates in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So Kim was furious. And in the big picture, I mean, we could go into a lot of detail, which involved reaching for the telephone book and opening up under the yellow pages and looking under counselor and going and walking into a total stranger office and beginning to talk to a man who became my friend, but he was my therapist. And that was so important for me because I didn't know how to trust anybody. And I actually had to pay someone to trust, and that was my therapist. And Scott, he's the first person in my life that I ever said, "Can you help me?" I never said that to a human being. I kept locked up, but you know, and Scott, he looks at me, he says, "Yeah, I can help you, but it's going to take a year and a half." And I said, "Count me in." And he laughed. He said, "Paul, people who are sitting where you are right now, they always say they're in, that they're going to, be part of this until it's done. But after a few months, they feel a little better about themselves. They feel more control. And a lot of times they start to feel like they're smarter than me. And they bail out right before the really hard stuff." And so that started my therapy relationship with Scott. And every day that I was with Scott, I would call Kim, and every day she would say the same thing. She would say, "Yeah, right, whatever." Like, and I'm thinking, why should she trust me? I mean, all of this caught her totally by surprise. She didn't know about my addictions. She didn't know about my history. She didn't know, and I just blindsided her. And so why should she trust me? So one of the right things that I did was never, two things. One, I never pointed a finger at her. I never tried to make her part of what was my problem. And I owned what I had done. And I didn't put a time limit on this. I didn't know the outcomes. I didn't try to control the outcomes. And my thought was, she may never believe. In fact, the day that she found out and we had that first conversation, um, I said to her after those 4 hours, I said, if we are going to do this, I need to tell you every secret that I have because secrets have been killing me my whole life. And she naively, she says, bring it on. And it took me 4 days to tell her everything she didn't know. And worse, at the end of the first day, I said, that's everything. But it wasn't. And so at the beginning of the second day, I had to go, it wasn't everything. And I would tell more. And then I would say, that's everything. And then the next day, I would have to say, that wasn't everything. And by the end of those days, she said to me, I will never believe another word that comes out of your mouth the rest of your life. And she meant it. And I mean, her and her sisters had always said that the one thing they would never abide in their marriages was adultery. And people ask me, why did Kim allow you to stay? And I said, as furious as she was, she believed I hit the bottom. I was owning it. I was telling the truth about it. And we didn't even make my adultery a new secret. Not in the community, not in our family, not in our relationships. It never became a new secret. I was done with secrets. And she was too. And the only reason, and she has told me, she said, if you ever pointed a finger at me during the process, you would have been gone. Because that means that you wouldn't be owning it yourself. You wouldn't own your whatever is your stuff. And so she didn't ask me to go to therapy. I chose to do that because I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I knew I needed to talk to someone. And so that's why I pulled a random name out of the yellow pages and ended up with the most perfect person that I could imagine, right? So about 3 months, 3.5 months into therapy, I gave up. I hit the bottom. I mean, I lost all my hope. I got to the place that was really too hard for me. And I began planning a trip to another country so that I could kill myself. And that I was thinking maybe the only good thing that Paul Young could ever do in his life was to at least he killed himself far enough away from his family that the kids didn't find his body. And so I was saving money for the plane ticket and everything calmed down because I made a decision. And then I got intercepted by a friend and actually two friends. One of them went to Kim and he's my friend and he's Kim's friend and he is a broken boy. I mean, his childhood was so abused. And he's an alcoholic, but he goes to Kim, and he's very sensitive to the things of the spirit. And he says, I'm not telling you that you need to reconcile with Paul. I'm just telling you that I have a sense right now, if you hit him one more time, not physically, but verbally and fury, he says, I think if you do that one more time right now, you're going to kill him. And she didn't know that I was standing on the edge of the cliff. And then my other friend came to me and she says, and I didn't know about the other guy, my other friend that went to talk to Kim. But she says to me, tell me where you are right now. And I said, you want to know where I am? This started about a mile away from the cliff, from the abyss, from the hole, from the dark. And Kim was pounding on me every day. How could you do this to another human being? How could you do this to your kids? How could you do this to their kids who loved us? How could you betray? And I mean, just like bam, bam, bam. And she said, I said to her, and she gets me to the edge of the cliff, and my heels are on the edge, and she spins me around, and she goes, Just look at it. And I said, I looked down into the darkness and there was nothing there. And I lost all my hope. It was like, I'm nothing. And that's when I decided I was done. And so I'm telling her, and I said, I'll tell you, you know who I am? I'm on the edge of this cliff. I'm a little pile of dried up shit. I'm a little pile of dried up manure. And the wind is blowing, and I'm terrified. When it's done blowing, there won't be anything left. And she says to me, Paul, in that pile, there's a seed. And I think, there's a seed? And I think, if there is a seed, something that is actually living could grow. And then my next thought is, seeds, they grow good in this kind of stuff, yeah? And all my hope came back in a little tiny seed that I couldn't even see, that was covered over by all this crap. And instead of going to another country, I went back to Scott and told him what was going on, and we went back to work. So 9 months into this therapy, Scott says one morning, he says, Paul, you're done. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm done? You said it was going to take 1.5 years. He said, yeah, but none of us in this clinic, none of us has ever seen anybody work this hard and stick to it. And he knew it was life or death for me. It was desperation. It was like, if I can't find a way to change, I'm done. And so in those 9 months, I had begun to reframe my whole understanding of the nature and character of God. And starting from ground level, here I am, a religious kid, modern evangelical Western. I grew up in church. I grew up, reading scripture, studying it. I went to Bible school, and I had to start over. And there was things that stayed, and even though I started over, there were things that I got from my heritage that were good. But at the beginning, I just had to lay it all out and say, okay, let me start with some basic things. Like, do you love me? Are you in me? Can I trust you? And little piece by little piece by little piece, I began to build. And then I began to let, other men into my life. And that was a big, big step of trust, because men had done a lot of the damage. And in that period of time, I was changing my understanding of who it meant to be a human being, and beginning to build a magnificent view of God that was worthy of trusting, and a higher level of what it meant to be human, rather than just someone with a sin nature who is struggling to do the right thing and hoping the Holy Spirit would help, which was always, it never worked. It was always a war. It was always exhausting. And so, bit by bit, it took Kim and I 11 years before I knew that she trusted me, before we were reconciled. Yeah, she forgave me, but that was for her sake, which is always true. Forgiveness is for the sake of the one who has been harmed. It's so that they can move on with their life without carrying a corpse of a loss. or a betrayal. Forgiveness is possible because it's just a little, all you need is a little tiny seed, but it's to free yourself. Reconciliation is to free the victim. I mean, free the perpetrator, free the one who did the harm. And that was me, but she had to see me change over a period of years in order to begin to trust it. And at the end of that period, I knew it was done when we were sitting in a group of people who knew my story. They knew what I had done because I told you, we never made it a secret. And Kim says in front of me to them, I never thought I would ever say this in my life. It was all worth it. And she's not justifying adultery because nothing justifies adultery. That is a covenant-breaking thing. She is saying, there is nothing so broken that God can't heal it. There is nothing so lost that God doesn't know where it is, and there's nothing so dead that God cannot grow something in it. And she was saying, Paul's worth it. It was worth it. So 11 years from the beginning of 1994 to the end of 2004. And for about 2005, I turned 50 at the end of 2004. And for about a few years, every once in a while, Kim would say, you know, someday, I think you should write a book as a gift for our children. No, she didn't say book. She said something. Later, she tells me that she was thinking 4 to 6 pages. And she says, I think you should write something as a gift for our children because you think outside the box. And I never felt healthy enough to do it until 2005. 2004 ended, 2005 begins, the year I'm turning 50. And I'm looking at my life and I'm looking at who I am. And I think, oh my goodness, I'm like one of the healthiest people that I know. I don't have any addictions. I don't have any secrets. Joy is a constant companion. I finally understand what it's like to be a child. And I'm the same person in every situation, whether it's with a group of people, whether I'm by myself, whether I'm in a hotel room, whether I'm in front of a crowd of people. I'm the same person because this incredible wholeness has been established in my heart and I live out from the inside. I'm no longer trying to find a way through self-discipline or some external thing to figure out my life and how to be whole and all those things that never worked. And I thought, you know what? I'm finally ready to write something as a gift for my kids. And so the year I turned 50, the year of Jubilee, mostly on the train to one of my 3 jobs, I write a story for my kids because it's the only thing I have to give them that year for Christmas. So I write a story. At Christmas, I get a little bit of money. I go down to Office Depot, which is printing department store. And on their photocopier, they had a sale going on and I could get 15 copies for the same price as 8. So I make 15 copies of a little book that I wrote for my kids called The Shack. And at Christmas, I give 6 to our children. Kim and I keep a copy and I have these extras. So I give them to my friends and I go back to work. It never crosses my mind to be a published author. I wasn't trying to do anything for the world or for God. It was just a story that I thought my kids would love, and I thought that it would save them years, that my life could maybe save them years. So in the story, I'm 2 characters. I'm Mackenzie, And his initials spell M-A-P, Mackenzie Allen Phillips. He's a map, but he's me as an adult trying to figure out the nature and character of God, lost in the tragedy of my other character, which is Melissa Ann Phillips. Her name spells map also, Missy, and who is abducted and murdered at the age of 5 to 6, which is when the sexual abuse started for me, and that's when my inside child died. And so combining those two things and walking through the the revelation of God that I had come to understand as true, that had set me free to be a whole person. And the shack then represents the damaged heart that is transformed by the activity of God. And it's not like I'm done. There's always finish work. But the big pieces have been built, rebuilt, and redeemed. So that's how the shack came to be. And so it's not it's, every once in a while somebody will say something like on the line or whatever, how can you do this? You're an adulterer and you're trying to keep it a secret. And I go, no, it's not a secret. Look, let me give you a bunch of websites that talk about it. It's never been a secret. And one guy that did that, he emailed me back and he said, I need to ask your forgiveness because, but that doesn't offend me. People who are upset at the book, that doesn't offend me because my identity is in Jesus. It's not in a book. And when things are happening like what you're doing in Egypt, oh my gosh, it is just such a kiss of grace. It's such redemption for my history and all of these ripples that go out. It's just beyond beautiful for me. And so, to have this time with you, Miriam, is just such an honor and a joy. And I'm so grateful. So that's a long introduction, yeah?
Yeah, it's perfect one. Yeah. Because half of this podcast, I'm going to ask you about all of this, so you helped me to do it. Thank you, really.
You're
And
very, very, very welcome.
your words touch me so much. It's hurt and it's so deep. And I don't have words to say, but just I feel like deep pain. You go through a lot. Everything you have shared with us today and last podcast speaks deeply to the human needs for places where real healing can happen. Here in Egypt, we have been inspired by your story to create such a space. Before we are close, I would love to share with you and our listeners a lot about the Shack Counseling Initiative.
Please.
The Shack is a safe and welcome space for emotional support and personal development. We choose the name of honor of the Shack story, which speaks deeply about pain, it's understanding it and refusing to shut it down aggressively. I think all of us trying to do this when there is a pain. We believe that pain is not a shame, but a doorway to true transportation and the letter for all of us. To create creating a community that value mental health and embrace pain a part of healing and growth journey. Also, Shack make psychology support and awareness to everyone, especially to people who need help. So we are already, our service is individual and group counseling, psychology, drama workshops, culture salons, movie nights, reading, reflecting groups. Anyway, movie night, a lot of share here in chat. And training for mental health practicing. We start from nothing, Paul, just a dream of a home in the heart of Shobra. And now we are starting just a dream for a heart in المصرية soon. Through divine intervention of the support of many hearts, the dream become a lovely reality. Yeah, today Sheikh is a true home for the broken and the lost and those who seeking a space of unconditional love. Special question for you, Paul. When you hear about the Sheikh counseling in Egypt and how it creates the spirit of the Sheikh into real life, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I was telling Kim about this and some of my friends, and I'm just so deeply honored and grateful that in a little way I got to participate in this, because obviously your hearts are to love others well and draw them in the direction of healing and wholeness. And the fact that the shack was, in a sense, instrumental in that journey is mind-blowing to me in the best possible way. So it thrills me what you are doing. And I so appreciate knowing about it, because that's one of the ripples, right, of just writing a little story for my kids for Christmas one year.
All your kids, okay?
All my kids, all
I'm
my
your
kids.
kid, and I'm one of your kids, okay?
Hey, you absolutely are.
Yeah.
And I don't have words for it. It's just too beautiful for words. Yeah,
In
you're
your
welcome.
view, how important is it that place like Sheikh Counseling exists today to offer real healing in this community?
Oh, it's essential everywhere. I think that all of these modalities of healing, all of these ways of approaching loss and harm and hurt and trauma, all of these ways, God is behind them, because human beings are so unique and they're so uniquely harmed that it takes many kinds of ways and approaches and sensitivities. And so I think it's essential, and it continues to be essential, and it is growing in terms of that. And I think that God is behind science, and God is behind the science of how to understand human personality, and ways of moving in the direction of healing and wholeness. And then, with the Holy Spirit involved in the middle of that, there's always an openness and an adjustment. And I know that's true for you all. So I think it's very, very important.
So, Paul, if you would send a message to those who walk through our doors with a lot of pain, what would you say to them?
Ah,
Please take care about this message, because I'm going to print it, write it, and put it in the front of the room. So I need you to give us a direct message for a lifetime, please.
You matter. You are worth the work. Do the next right thing and trust the outcomes to God, to love. There is a wind that would steal away your very soul, but there is another that will wrap you in the tenderest embrace of affection and sing you into wholeness. One day, one moment at a time. Blessings. You're welcome.
Before ending our next podcast, because I know your time is so valuable, if every one of us is full, if all of us is full, so the little full, not the big one.
Yeah.
Because in Egypt, if you know, there is a lot of people who through what's happened to you. And in this time in Egypt, I need you to send a message for the little kid in every one of us, especially kids who go through what you go through. I need a message. Just to please, just a light from far away, just to let them begin their journey.
Yeah.
What's the message you are going to give to them as a gift?
I would say to the little child, you're not alone. You have never been alone. You have always been wrapped up in the affection and the kindness of love, whether you actually could feel it or understand it. You don't have to work so hard anymore. You're free to begin to take the risk of trust. And the big you is going to write you a letter and tell you how sad they are with you for the hurt and the harm, how important you are, and to thank you for the ways that you protected. And they're going to tell you that you don't have to do all that work anymore. You matter. You've always mattered. You will forever matter. It's okay to come home. You're welcome.
Thank you once again for your generosity, your spirit, and your courage. Your journey is a living proof that healing is possible, and that witness can become a way to grace. Here, the Sheikh Counseling in Egypt, we are honored to carry forward the message you have given to the world. Thank you for inspiring us and for being part of our story today. Because of you, we are here in Egypt. This shack has been created by Yusuf and Lil'Insan, and I'm so happy to tell you that without your story and without the movie and without your book, there is no shack in Egypt. So shack is in Egypt now because you did all this.
Praise be to God.
Yeah, it's helped a million people, and I hope this podcast is going to help a lot of people to begin their journey. Okay.
Praise be to God.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Let's meet again and let us give a promise for all my friends and Shag family after they see the next podcast that Paul will going to be with us soon.
Yep, if I'm alive, God wills.
Yeah, you will be. And you, as promised, you're going to accomplish.
I hope so. Again, if I'm alive and God wills.
You will, don't worry.
This is
Really.
great. This is great. I want to at least meet and hug my family in Egypt, yeah?
Okay.
All
We
right.
are here anytime.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Let's see.
Thank you for your time, and let's see you next time, okay?
Right.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.